Charlotte stepped into the grand ballroom, her figure wrapped in a sleek, midnight blue gown that shimmered under the chandeliers. A hush fell, as if the entire crowd sensed a hidden electricity radiating from her presence. She had been gone for years, vanishing after a bitter divorce that left her with nothing, no name recognition, no fortunes, and no hope. Yet here she stood, side by side with Marcus Laurent, the powerful billionaire known for snapping his fingers to bend the world to his will. Did Jonathan, her ex-husband, truly not recognize the very woman he once loved? Tonight promised confrontations, revelations, and the kind of raw emotion that could change everything. Night had settled over the city of Avalon Heights, a metropolis filled with soaring skyscrapers, exclusive penthouses, and a flurry of philanthropic events that catered to the wealthy. The Gala was an annual highlight, an extravagant fundraiser for the Children's Hospital that drew every socialite, celebrity, and corporate titan within a 100-mile radius. Jonathan Turner was among them. At 38, he was an established marketing magnate, known for his charm, intelligence, and well-groomed persona. He arrived with a small entourage of business associates, giving polite nods to people whose names he barely recalled. Jonathan was impeccably dressed in a tailored tuxedo. His hair was dark and carefully styled, his posture upright, and his manner assured. Yet beneath that polished veneer lay an undercurrent of restlessness. Despite toppling barriers in his profession, he felt a deep hollowness in his personal life, something he barely admitted even to himself. His divorce from Charlotte had been final for 5 years. Back then it seemed like a relief. Their fights had escalated from petty arguments to full-blown emotional warfare, often sparked by his ambition overshadowing her creative aspirations. She used to paint, used to dream of opening her own gallery, but as his career soared, her artistic pursuits took a back seat. Resentments grew, words were exchanged, and a final betrayal, fueled by a moment of professional jealousy on his part, drove her away. The memory flickered in the background of his mind as he entered the event. The opulent ballroom, boasting gold-lined columns and towering floral arrangements, took center stage. Waiters in crisp uniforms glided among guests, offering champagne flutes and hors d'oeuvres. The live orchestra, placed atop a plush red-carpeted stage, played a gentle waltz. Jonathan mingled, forging new connections and reaffirming old ties. He was good at it, so good that most people never guessed the cost of maintaining that winning persona. Meanwhile, across the room, Charlotte clung to Marcus Laurent's arm, her heart fluttering with an odd mix of excitement and dread. She had studied the guest list discreetly, rolling her eyes at the sea of familiar names that reminded her of a past life. She suspected Jonathan would be here. Not that she planned to confront him, she was prepared to ignore him if necessary. For Charlotte, the night was about supporting Marcus, who was the evening's keynote speaker and the sponsor behind a massive donation to the hospital. The press relished any appearance by Marcus Laurent, a self-made billionaire known for his tech empire and rumored philanthropic deals. Whispers around him were unwaveringly respectful. He was a man who could make or break fortunes with a single word. Charlotte had met Marcus at a small art exhibit in Monaco. She'd been showcasing a painting, her quiet return to the art world after years of self-imposed exile. Marcus had shown interest in the piece and struck up a conversation that revealed not only a shared appreciation for the abstract, but also a surprisingly honest approach to life. Mutual respect grew, blossoming into a romance that Charlotte kept private. She was drawn to his directness, his unwavering support for her creative visions, and his unwavering gaze that saw her as more than just a trophy. In some ways, Marcus was the antithesis of Jonathan, though Charlotte tried not to linger on the comparison. Still, the ghosts of her past were here tonight, swirling in the background, magnified by the formality of the gala and the presence of so many acquaintances who once witnessed her abrupt departure. While Marcus greeted fellow executives, Charlotte allowed herself to wander, and that's when she saw Jonathan from afar. The moment stung. The tilt of his head, the shape of his posture, the brief sideway grin he gave another woman reminded her of better times, fleetingly. Her breath caught, emotions tangling in her chest. Her first instinct was to escape back to the safety of Marcus's company. Adolescence taught her flight in the face of conflict, and years of a turbulent marriage had only reinforced that protective reflex. But she'd resolved to be stronger now. Oblivious to her presence, Jonathan sipped champagne while scanning the ballroom. The mentions of a mysterious beauty rumored to be Marcus's +1 had floated around, but he pictured an entirely different woman, someone more aloof, more obviously trophy-worthy. When at last the crowd parted, he got a clear glimpse of Charlotte's face, though from where he stood she was half turned away, bright curls pinned back elegantly. Something in the curve of her neck sparked a distant memory. He narrowed his eyes, trying to place the sense of déjà vu, but he shook it off. After all, Charlotte couldn't possibly be standing next to Marcus Laurent like that, welcomed, cherished, part of a world Jonathan believed she had permanently exited. The memory returned. He thought about his ex-wife's tearful eyes the day she walked out, suitcase in hand, leaving behind a note that he failed to read in full detail until it was too late to fix things. Guilt seeped in, but he quashed it with the same swiftness he had mastered over the years. "Focus on the now," he told himself. "You're here for a good cause." The evening progressed into speeches. The MC introduced various dignitaries, local politicians, and philanthropic figures. Jonathan glanced at the program. A name, Marcus Laurent, stood out as the final speaker. Not surprising. He was rumored to donate millions. Jonathan's interest piqued less about the donation and more about a philosophical curiosity. Did someone as powerful as Marcus live a more fulfilling personal life too? During the earlier roving of the microphone, Jonathan was asked to say a few words about corporate responsibility. He obliged, stepping onto the stage with practiced confidence. He glanced at the audience, scanning faces, still not fully registering the ex-wife who now stood near the front, weaving her way closer as the speech commenced. After a polished and safe speech, Jonathan stepped down to polite applause. He was only vaguely aware that someone in the front row, someone whose eyes shimmered like a memory, was clapping fervently. Soon, it was Marcus's turn. The billionaire approached the mic, exuding a magnetic calm that captured everyone's attention. His voice was rich, each word deliberate, talking about compassion, innovation, and how money can uplift communities if spent thoughtfully. Then, with a warm smile, he gestured toward Charlotte standing close by, inviting her to step to the center. That was when Jonathan saw her, really saw her, for the first time that night. Lit by the stage lights, hair elegantly coiffed, wearing that stunning gown. The shock on his face was plain. Charlotte, his Charlotte. Something inside Jonathan twisted painfully. He stared at her as though she were a stranger or a phantom from a dream. This had to be a mistake. His jaw tightened. She couldn't be. She was. She looked confident, poised, radiant in a way he barely remembered. She smiled softly into the microphone, thanking the crowd for attending and praising the hospital's important work. Her voice was smooth, but with an undertone of unspoken emotion that betrayed her nerves. Only Jonathan noticed the slight quiver in her throat, the breath she took before concluding. The applause swallowed all else. As Charlotte moved to stand beside Marcus, Jonathan felt an invisible barrier slam between them. She was so close physically, yet worlds away emotionally, bonded to another man, someone who apparently adored her. Jonathan's mind reeled. Surely the woman who helped shape some of his greatest memories couldn't stand there without acknowledging him. Had she forgotten him, or was this her deliberate choice? The barley sugar swirl of confusion, regret, and unexpected longing began to churn within him. It was a moment heavy with tension, and Jonathan's body seemed to remember exactly how it felt to yearn for her acceptance. He stepped forward as the applause faded, though the crowd closed in around him, blocking his direct path. He lost sight of Charlotte and Marcus in the swirl of evening gowns and tuxedos, but the storm now raged inside him, unstoppable. He had to speak to her. He had to understand what was happening and, perhaps more importantly, why seeing her again triggered such a deep ache of longing, guilt, and curiosity. The night had only begun, and already the equilibrium of his carefully constructed life teetered on the brink of collapse. For the first time in years, Jonathan felt truly unprepared. Jonathan lingered at the edge of the ballroom, fighting an urge to bolt out the doors for fresh air. A swirl of perfume, excitement, and tension enveloped him. His composed marketing persona faltered as he realized that the one person he never expected to see again was now unmissably present. Charlotte's reappearance was like staring into a mirror that forced him to confront the man he'd once been, and the man he feared he still was. Strains of classical music resumed as couples took to the dance floor. Bolstered by the wave of regal formality, Jonathan forced himself to move gracefully among the throng, searching for that glimmer of midnight blue fabric. He caught sight of Marcus Laurent towering beside her, politely engaged in conversation with some city officials. Charlotte's posture appeared confident, but Jonathan noticed the small gestures that betrayed her nerves, like the way she toyed with the delicate clasp on her clutch. He paused near a marble column. A bitter memory of Charlotte's last days with him seeped into his mind. He had been so absorbed in climbing the corporate ladder that he hardly noticed her quietly unraveling. She'd been forced to curtail her dream of establishing an art gallery. Their arguments escalated when he refused to fund her venture, accusing her of lacking the practical sense to guarantee a return on investment. At the time, he believed she was being naive. Now, he felt a hollow pang in his chest. Perhaps she wasn't the naive one. Perhaps it was his own vision that was so painfully narrow. At that moment, Charlotte separated from Marcus, who was drawn into a quick side discussion with two donors. She drifted toward a champagne station. Though her eyes scanned the area, Jonathan noticed her gaze deliberately skip over him. Summoning his courage, he closed the distance. People parted as he navigated the busy crowd with a single-minded determination. When he was within a few steps, Charlotte seemed to sense him. Her eyes flickered upward, their gazes locking for a half-second that felt like an eternity. Something inside Jonathan tensed. She still had those warm brown eyes, flecked with gold near the iris, eyes that once gazed at him with love. Now they registered startled recognition, then quickly shuttered into polite neutrality. "Charlotte," he said quietly, his voice as soft as it was urgent. "It's been a while." She turned gracefully, every inch the refined guest. "Jonathan," she replied after a measured pause. Her tone was cordial with a slight tremor. "I hope you're doing well." It struck him as surreal, trading pleasantries with the woman who had once been his everything. Jonathan nodded awkwardly. Yes, I'm doing fine. You look good. Very good." He allowed an embarrassed chuckle to escape. "I didn't realize. I had no idea you'd be here tonight." Charlotte offered a calm half-smile. "I'm here accompanying Marcus." She peered at him, searching for clues behind his carefully composed expression. There was no time to discuss old wounds or hidden blame. The gala was hardly the place for messy disclosures. Jonathan cleared his throat, stepping aside as a pair of servers passed by with trays of hors d'oeuvres. "That speech was impressive," he said. "His donation will make a huge impact." "Yes," she murmured, fiddling with the stem of her champagne flute. "Marcus is committed to several philanthropic causes." He studied her face. Time had only enhanced her beauty. Subtle lines adorned the edges of her eyes, but they brought a captivating maturity he couldn't ignore. A flash of guilt surged within him. He had once wanted to be the man who helped her fill her life with color. Instead, he smothered her creativity, leaving her to find her own way. "So," he began, fumbling for composure, "you and Marcus, it's, serious." Immediately, He wished he could retract the question. It was none of his business. But the words hung in the air. Her pause spoke volumes. She let out a small sigh, meeting his gaze. We support each other. He respects my interests and invests in my art gallery. It's balanced. She left the rest unspoken. The implication that this stark contrast to her previous marriage was not lost on either of them. Jonathan nodded. I'm glad, he said, though the pang of regret twisted deeper. Any new paintings you're working on these days? He tried, grasping for neutral conversation that might hint at what she'd become. A soft light entered Charlotte's eyes at the mention of her art. I have a new series, actually. Landscapes in abstract form. I've been experimenting with new mediums and techniques. Marcus has offered me space in one of his modern art galleries in California. Next month, we launch the exhibit. Warm pride slipped into her voice. Jonathan felt torn between happiness for her and a sharp stab of envy. He had publicly scoffed at her dream back then, but it was only because he felt threatened. He never confessed that to her, just as he never confessed how her success made him feel inadequate, overshadowed. He swallowed hard. Congratulations. I'd love to see it sometime. Charlotte darted a quick glance at him, uncertain if he was merely being polite. The memory of their fights lingered like a bruise, reminding her of how he once dismissed her creative ambitions as impractical. She gave a careful nod, but didn't extend an invitation. Thank you. Suddenly, a hand touched Charlotte's back. Marcus had returned. Jonathan straightened at the billionaire's presence, his eyes taking in Marcus's commanding demeanor. Marcus flicked Jonathan a polite smile. Jonathan Turner, isn't it? CEO of Bravo Marketing Inc. I remember reading about your campaigns. Marcus Laurent, Jonathan acknowledged, feeling the power dynamic acutely. The handshake was firm, neither man wanting to yield. Marcus's dark eyes evaluated Jonathan, a flicker of curiosity in their depths. He looked from Jonathan to Charlotte, picking up on the tension. I see you two know each other, Marcus said, raising an amused brow at Charlotte. Charlotte took a breath. Marcus, this is my ex-husband, Jonathan. Her voice was calm, but Jonathan detected a pulse of vulnerability. The words ex-husband lingered in the air, drawing a subtle hush around them. Marcus maintained his composure, giving Jonathan a measured nod. Ah, well, that's quite a coincidence. Pleasant to meet you. Likewise, Jonathan replied, though pleasant was the last word describing his inner turmoil. Marcus exuded a confidence that unsettled him, a neat reflection of everything Jonathan wanted to be in control of. But tonight he felt overshadowed and small. After an obligatory exchange of pleasantries, Marcus gracefully pivoted, excusing himself and Charlotte to greet a senator who'd just arrived. We'll catch up later, Jonathan, Charlotte said politely, her tone carefully neutral. Then she left, her arm looped through Marcus's. The couple strolled together, forging through the crowd as one. With that, Jonathan was left standing amid swirling couples and chattering society figures, his champagne gone warm in his hand. In that brief exchange, he realized there was far more to Charlotte's new life than he'd expected. The confidence, the support, the genuine pride. She'd grown into a woman he hardly recognized, one who no longer needed his approval. It stung like betrayal and raw envy combined, stirring regrets he had worked hard to bury. He needed to step outside. Making his way to the doors leading to a marble balcony, Jonathan inhaled the crisp night air. The city lights glistened against the inky sky. He leaned on the balustrade, letting the distant hum of cars below calm him. But the hush only allowed unwelcome thoughts to flood back in. He remembered the last conversation they had before Charlotte left. He had been cold, dismissive, telling her they had to be realistic about money and time. Her tearful eyes pleaded with him to see her. He didn't, so she quietly disappeared. Now she stood as a living testament to what happens when you find someone who truly believes in you, and how you can flourish when not bound by emotional constraints. Unsteady, Jonathan closed his eyes, recalling the divorce's finality. The settlement was minimal. She asked for almost nothing, just the freedom to leave without a fight. In his complacency, he believed she would never escalate. After all, she had no interest in his rising empire of brand deals and marketing expansions. She simply vanished. Perhaps that should have been his first clue that she was never truly appeased by material gains. Now, an idea gnawed at him. Could this re-encounter be an opportunity to make amends? Or was it merely a painful glimpse at a life that had moved on without him? He asked himself if he truly wanted to disrupt her new happiness. Then came the other question. Did he deserve another chance? If not to reconcile, then to at least find redemption. He gazed at the moonlit cityscape, imagining how Charlotte saw the world, how she filled its grey edges with colour and possibility. Something broke open in his chest, an awareness that he'd never fully recovered from losing her, that every subsequent relationship had paled in comparison, stunted by his own barriers. A wave of regret weighed him down, threatened to push him under. Yet in that moment he also felt a flicker of resolve. If life had brought them face to face again, perhaps it was time he confronted his own flaws, offered an apology, and, if she would allow it, attempted to heal, however long that path would be. With a final deep breath, Jonathan returned to the gala, uncertain of what the rest of the evening would bring, but determined to meet it head-on. Somewhere in this crowd was the woman he once loved, and despite all the pain and broken promises, he wanted to see her again, to speak the words he'd bitten back all those years. And if she gave him the slightest chance to atone, if redemption was even an option, he wouldn't let it slip away this time. Threading back into the ballroom, Jonathan discovered the festivities in full swing. The orchestra had switched to an upbeat number, and the dance floor was alive with swirling gowns and sparkling cufflinks. He felt an internal shift. He wasn't just another attendee or businessman looking to network. Tonight, he wanted clarity, forgiveness, or at least the chance to speak his truth. Meanwhile, across the room, Charlotte paused to greet an old friend, Martha Cross, a former colleague from the art community. Their conversation touched on curators, exhibit schedules, and the sense of vindication Charlotte felt finally bringing her art to the forefront. Yet Charlotte's gaze drifted, searching for Jonathan in the crowd. She told herself it was an old habit, a lingering reflex from their marriage. Always scanning for him, reading his expression to gauge if a mood might sour or lighten. But this time her heart pounded differently, a swirl of unresolved emotions fueling that rapid beat. Marcus reappeared at Charlotte's side, voice lowered. "Everything all right, darling?" he asked, noticing the tension in her shoulders. Since the day they'd met, Marcus had an uncanny perception, picking up her mood like an experienced poker player reading an opponent. Charlotte exhaled, letting a gentle honesty slip into her tone. "I bumped into Jonathan earlier. It was unexpected." Marcus rested a reassuring hand on her elbow, a gesture of calm solidarity. "Do you need some space? We can leave any time." A part of her longed to run away, but she had always been the one to flee. Maybe it was time to confront her past with the same courage she used to build her new life. "No," she replied, softly placing her hand atop his. "I'm okay." Marcus nodded, flashing that confident yet caring smile. "All right, just remember, I've got your back." Then, spotting a major investor beckoning him, he excused himself once more. Charlotte inhaled, determined to keep her composure. No more running, she told herself. She'd spent years hiding from the trauma, but seeing Jonathan's face, ashen with regret, softened with surprise, stirred something in her. Did she crave an apology, an acknowledgement of the way he'd belittled her dreams? Or was she seeking closure? Suddenly, the music eased into a waltz. A hush of excitement passed around the dance floor. Couples shifted, arms extended in invitation. Jonathan spotted Charlotte standing alone, the gentle light of the chandeliers giving her skin a warm glow. Summoning every ounce of courage, he approached. "May I?" he asked, extending his hand. Her eyes flicked to his outstretched palm. Though conflicting emotions churned in her heart, part of her sensed that turning him down for this simple dance might build another wall she'd eventually regret. With measured composure, she placed her hand in his. "Sure," she answered, almost above a whisper. They stepped onto the dance floor, merging into the slow tempo. The memory of dancing together as newlyweds rushed back to Charlotte, awkward but sweet steps at their wedding reception, how Jonathan had 2 left feet but tried heroically to keep her from noticing. The recollection made her smile in a melancholy way. His hand rested lightly on her waist, careful, as if he feared crossing a boundary. They moved in cautious circles, eyes occasionally meeting. Each note of the violin seemed to vibrate with unspoken words. "Are you happy?" Jonathan managed, voice low. Charlotte considered the question. "More than I used to be," she answered, an honest, measured response. He swallowed. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, his voice trembling with genuine remorse. "For not believing in you, for everything. I know it's too late for apologies, but I need you to know that I regret how things ended." She processed his words. For years she harnessed silent anger, replaying their final fights, the unkind remarks he'd flung at her in stressful moments. Now, hearing him voice that regret caused her chest to tighten unexpectedly. "Thank you," she whispered. "We were both at fault in some ways, but you hurt me, Jonathan, more than I realized at first." A hush descended between them as the orchestra soared, carrying them around the polished floor. Nearby, other couples danced, oblivious to the emotional undercurrents swirling between the former spouses. Charlotte's eyes glistened with tears she fought to hold back. She was stronger now, yet some old wound had reopened, raw and vulnerable. Jonathan's posture stiffened. "I know," he murmured, anguish creeping through his voice. "I'm not asking for pity or for anything else, really. I never got to tell you how proud I was of your art, even when I acted otherwise. I was jealous, maybe, afraid of losing my spotlight. That was selfish." She blinked, breath catching. A swirling confusion clouded her mind. "So you did believe in me?" The vulnerability in her tone was palpable, a quiet reflection of the hope she once clung to. He nodded, inhaling deeply. "I did. I was just too consumed by my own ego to show it." The waltz ended, and the dancers slowed to a stop. A smattering of applause greeted the orchestra. Jonathan let his hand slip from Charlotte's waist, stepping back. They faced each other in the hush that followed the final note. "Jonathan, I appreciate your honesty," Charlotte said at last. She paused, uncertain how much more to reveal. "But I have a life now, one that took a long time to build. I'm not looking for second chances in romance, if that's what you're—" He shook his head gently. "No, I understand. This isn't about that. I just want to—" A voice called out, "Charlotte!" and they both turned to see Marcus approaching. His calm composure wavered slightly, as though alert to a subtle tension. Not wanting to inflame or misconstrue the situation, Jonathan nodded politely to them both and strolled off. He felt a peculiar mixture of relief and regret swirl in his chest. Marcus slipped an arm around Charlotte's waist. "Everything okay?" She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his reassuring heartbeat. "He apologized," she said softly. Surprise flickered across Marcus's features. "That's good. Are you all right?" Charlotte exhaled a slow breath. "I think so. It's just complicated." Understanding filled Marcus's eyes. While confident, he also recognized that some battles lie in personal histories. "Take all the time you need," he said gently, brushing a small kiss over her temple before leading her away from the crowd. Jonathan, meanwhile, retreated to a quiet corner alongside the ornate bar. He was joined unexpectedly by an old friend, Gavin Reyes, who'd been an associate since the early days of Jonathan's marketing career. Gavin was a sharp-eyed man who specialized in media relations and had witnessed the downfall of Jonathan's marriage. "I saw that dance," Gavin quipped, swirling his whiskey. "Didn't think you two would ever speak again." Jonathan downed half his champagne in one gulp. "Neither did I." "Marcus Laurent, huh?" Gavin gave a low whistle. "He's a big fish. You know, if you're looking for brand expansions, he might be the perfect partner, if you can stomach personal drama." Jonathan cast him a weary glance. "This is about more than business, Gav." Gavin shrugged, though not unkindly. "Of course, but everything's connected in this world, especially if you play your cards right." Jonathan's jaw clenched. Wheels within wheels, indeed. This was exactly the kind of opportunistic angle he was trying to shirk tonight. He drained the rest of his champagne, setting the flute down with a thud. "I'm not about to use Charlotte's relationship as leverage." Gavin smirked, unconvinced. "Well, I'm not suggesting pulling any strings behind her back. Just keep your mind open. The future is unpredictable." With that, he slapped Jonathan on the shoulder and slipped back into the crowd, leaving the words lingering like a whispered challenge. Jonathan's gaze drifted to where Charlotte and Marcus were greeting a circle of admirers. Officially, the pair looked like the picture of refined elegance. Yet, he recalled Charlotte trembling in his arms during that dance, her voice laced with vulnerability. Reality sank in. He wanted to see her again, talk more, find closure, or build some bridge of friendship. But the spectre of moral compromise loomed. Would he be able to keep his intentions pure, or would ambition once again rear its ugly head? The event wore on with more speeches and a small ceremony to honor major donors. Despite mingling with other attendees, Jonathan was only half listening to any conversation, as if part of him had separated to watch Charlotte from a distance. Her interactions, her laughter, the subtle body language that radiated pride yet carried pockets of uncertainty. At times, their eyes met. The silent exchange was fleeting but powerful, a reminder that unresolved pasts don't simply vanish. Jonathan was left with a sense of longing he could neither fully articulate nor quell. The night concluded with a swirl of farewells, sealed deals, and mutual promises of continued philanthropy. As Charlotte prepared to follow Marcus out, she paused at the main entrance. She glanced back, as though searching the crowd. Their gazes locked one last time. Then she left, the soft train of her gown dragging elegantly behind her. Jonathan remained behind, lingering among the leftover fizz of champagne glasses and wilting flower arrangements. He felt as though an invisible door to his past had swung open, and with it came a chance, though uncertain, to address regrets he'd thought would remain buried forever. In the days following the gala, the city's tabloids and digital media outlets blazed with photos. Marcus Laurent and his stunning companion Charlotte Evans, the newly revealed partner by his side, had stirred the crowd. Their presence at the gala had overshadowed nearly every other attendee, including Jonathan Turner. If Jonathan's name appeared in the coverage at all, it was only as a supporting mention. Also in attendance was Jonathan Turner, marketing mogul. In his sleek office atop Bravo Marketing Inc., Jonathan dropped the latest gossip magazine onto his mahogany desk, feeling a complicated twinge. The back pages contained a shot of Charlotte's face angled in profile, smiling at Marcus as they posed with the hospital directors. Jonathan studied the photo with a heaviness in his chest. Across from him sat Gavin, tapping a pen against his phone. "It's official, man. The rumor mill is calling them a power duo. Some are speculating an engagement." Jonathan withheld a grimace. They might be jumping ahead. Charlotte never mentioned an engagement. "Doesn't mean it's not possible," Gavin countered, leaning forward. "Still, it could be an angle for you professionally. Marcus is planning expansions in digital technology. He'll need marketing expertise. Reach out. Offer your services." Jonathan frowned. "I'm not comfortable using Charlotte as a stepping stone." "Who said you have to mention her at all? It's the nature of business. You have a connection. Use it. That's not exploitation, it's networking. The words weighed heavily on Jonathan. There was truth in Gavin's perspective. Capitalizing on relationships was the essence of corporate strategy. But it felt uneasy, crossing lines between personal regret and professional ambition. "I need to think," Jonathan said finally. That afternoon, he drafted an email to Marcus. It was polite, referencing their brief introduction at the Gala. Jonathan proposed grabbing coffee to discuss potential synergies between Bravo Marketing and Laurent Tech. Then, for a long moment, his finger hovered over the send button. Doubts twisted in his mind. Was it ethical? Was he truly doing this for business? Or was there a hidden motive to see Charlotte again? With a sense of unresolved tension, he clicked send. Days passed without a reply. Jonathan tried to focus on other projects, immersing himself in client campaigns and upcoming product launches. But old memories kept intruding, pulling him back into a swirl of guilt, regret, and longing. It wasn't just Charlotte's face that haunted him. It was the sense of a second chance to be a better man, even if only in terms of acknowledging her as a talented artist worthy of respect. It was nearly a week later when his phone rang with an unknown number. Jonathan answered, bracing for sales spam. A warm baritone responded. "Jonathan, hello, this is Marcus Laurent. I received your email." Jonathan's heartbeat jumped. "Of course. Thank you for calling. I appreciate you taking the time." Marcus's voice was friendly, yet measured. "I've heard interesting things about your agency. I might be in the market for external marketing support for a new philanthropic tech initiative. How about dinner tomorrow night? I'll send a driver to pick you up." Jonathan blinked in surprise. "Dinner sounds good. Excellent. I'll have my assistant coordinate the details." There was a soft rustle in the background. "Oh, and Charlotte will be there too, if that's all right. We believe she can bring valuable input regarding the philanthropic elements. She's quite passionate about community impact." Jonathan swallowed. "Yes, absolutely. That would be fine." His words felt slightly forced, though it also spurred an odd sense of relief. He wasn't sneaking around behind Charlotte's back. The next evening found Jonathan stepping into a sleek black SUV that drove him to an upscale fusion restaurant in downtown Avalon Heights. Neon lights flickered outside, but the interior was intimate, bathed in subtle golden hues. Marcus and Charlotte were already seated at a secluded corner table, the city skyline visible through floor-to-ceiling windows behind them. Marcus stood to greet Jonathan, exuding both hospitality and executive composure. Charlotte offered a subdued smile, her eyes revealing caution. Jonathan took a seat as a waiter quietly approached, handing out menus and listing specials. Marcus wasted no time. "So, Jonathan, my philanthropic branch, Law Tech Cares, couples technological solutions with social good. We're piloting educational software for underprivileged schools. Current marketing has been subpar. I want a real campaign, something that resonates." Jonathan's professional training kicked in. He began discussing strategies, digital storytelling, forging local partnerships, leveraging brand ambassadors who personify empowerment. Marcus listened intently, occasionally glancing at Charlotte for her perspective. She contributed thoughtful comments about dealing respectfully with marginalized communities and making sure campaigns illustrate tangible societal benefits. Her voice was steady, assured, a far cry from the uncertain spouse Jonathan had known years ago. Over the next hour, the conversation wove between synergy proposals and personal anecdotes. Wine flowed as plates of artfully presented cuisine arrived. All the while, Charlotte's presence was a persistent undercurrent, a reminder of the tangled personal history overshadowing the business opportunity. At times, Jonathan found himself studying her face. She no longer shied away under scrutiny. She looked him in the eye, unflinching, as if telling him she wouldn't be broken again. Halfway through dinner, Marcus excused himself to take a phone call. Jonathan and Charlotte were briefly left alone. A lingering hush settled between them. She broke it first. "I didn't know Marcus invited you until this morning." He spread his hands, feeling the need to clarify. "I reached out purely to discuss business. I don't want you to think I'm—" She cut him off with a quiet sigh. "It's okay. Marcus approaches things head-on. That's how he is." Their eyes met. The restaurant's low lighting softened the sharp edges of memory. Jonathan leaned forward slightly. "Are you sure you're comfortable with this? I can back out. I don't want to create tension for you." She paused, reading the concern in his voice. "I'm fine," she eventually said. "I'm not fragile, Jonathan. Honestly, a small part of me is glad. I'd like to see you do better, to put your talents to good use." She sounded sincere, albeit tinged with caution. He nodded, heart pounding. The conversation was overshadowed by unspoken words, the apology, the regrets, the question of whether past wounds could truly heal. Charlotte seemed more at ease than she had been at the gala, which Jonathan recognized might be due to Marcus's unwavering support. A fleeting wave of sadness rippled through him as he realized she had found in Marcus the validation he never gave her. Returning to the table, Marcus offered a smile, politely apologizing for the interruption. "An investor crisis," he explained. "All sorted now, hopefully." Jonathan seized the moment to pivot back to business. "So, in terms of your philanthropic tech project, I see a multifaceted approach. We combine large-scale digital marketing campaigns with specialized local events, focusing on tangibility. Charlotte mentioned highlighting real success stories." Marcus nodded. "Yes, that's Charlotte's forte. She's done wonders with the youth art workshops at community centers. People respond to authenticity." A light spark of pride lit Charlotte's face. She softly nodded, adjusting her necklace. "In the end, we want a campaign that feels organic, not forced." They agreed to a follow-up meeting, tentatively scheduling it for the following week. Marcus suggested they host it at his corporate headquarters. By the time coffee and dessert were served, the tension had somewhat thawed. They spoke of lighter topics, favorite travel destinations, art exhibits, philanthropic endeavors. As the evening approached its end, Marcus settled the bill. Jonathan offered to pay his share, but Marcus insisted. "Next time, it's on you," he teased, in a display of camaraderie tempered by an undercurrent of mild territoriality. The trio stepped outside into the crisp night air, city lights shimmering. A driver pulled up in a sleek black sedan for Marcus and Charlotte. Jonathan bowed his head politely. Marcus shook his hand, murmuring, "Looking forward to working together." Charlotte met Jonathan's gaze. She wore a thoughtful expression, as though on the cusp of saying something. Instead, she nodded politely. "Good night, Jonathan." He watched as they disappeared into the night, a swirl of emotions settling over him like drifting snow. A part of him felt like he was walking on thin ice between his old life and the new, yet a spark of excitement tugged at his chest. An opportunity to prove he had changed, that he could be empathetic and supportive rather than egocentric. He reminded himself that the business collaboration was an avenue not just for profit, but also for personal growth. If he handled it ethically, maybe he could ease the burden of guilt he'd carried for years. And if he failed, then he'd be no better than the selfish husband he used to be. Jonathan arrived at Laurent Tech's headquarters the following week, heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and nerves. Situated in a glossy high-rise overlooking the busiest district of Avalon Heights, the building embodied the futuristic style Marcus prized. Sleek architecture, open spaces, and advanced digital displays in the lobby. The security guard directed Jonathan to the 20th floor, where Marcus's philanthropic branch, Law Tech Cares, had offices. As Jonathan stepped out of the elevator, he marveled at the polished setting. White marble floors, abstract art installations, possibly curated by Charlotte, and a lounge area where employees brainstormed marketing campaigns. A tall, graceful woman with short-cropped hair approached. "Mr. Turner, I'm Selina, Mr. Laurent's executive assistant. They're expecting you in the conference room." Following her lead, Jonathan entered a bright conference room. Marcus stood at the far end, phone pressed to his ear, facing a wall of windows that offered a magnificent view. Charlotte sat at a circular table, reviewing printouts. She glanced up when Jonathan entered, offering a polite smile that contained hints of warmth. Marcus finished his call and pivoted. "Jonathan, good to see you." He gestured to a seat beside Charlotte, a subtle sign he wasn't claiming her personal space, but also that they were united in their approach. Once they were settled, the meeting commenced. Jonathan presented a comprehensive marketing plan, short documentary-style videos highlighting real educational successes, influencer partnerships with teachers and students, social media rollouts featuring relatable personal stories, and philanthropic events bridging tech with art. The more he spoke, the more engaged Marcus became, occasionally nodding at Charlotte to gauge her reaction. Charlotte contributed her insights. "We should incorporate an art element into the campaign. Maybe we host a traveling gallery featuring pieces by students who've benefited from the software. Showcasing their talents will humanize the tech behind it." Jonathan's eyes lit up. "Brilliant! We could hold local showcases in community centers and schools. We tell the story of how each child can harness creativity and learning facilitated by your technology." They volleyed ideas back and forth, synergy forming in real time. Marcus seemed pleased, leaning back in his chair. "So, 3 phases: awareness, engagement, long-term retention. Each phase has budget allocations and timelines. I'll have my finance team coordinate with you." As the official meeting concluded, Marcus graciously thanked Jonathan, setting up ongoing collaboration. They walked out of the conference room into the lounge area, the sterile hum of computers and hushed conversation forming a backdrop. Marcus had another appointment, so he excused himself. That left Charlotte and Jonathan standing near one of her curated art pieces, a colorful swirl of shapes reminiscent of a child's imagination. She broke the silence with a small smile. "Your proposals were good. Drastic improvement from some of the stale corporate campaigns I've seen." His chuckle was self-conscious. "I've come a long way since producing consumer product ads, I guess." "Indeed." Her eyes roved the painting. "So, you're going to oversee the creative direction as well?" He nodded. "Partially. I'll bring in a team of specialists, but I want to remain hands-on." There was a heartbeat of hesitation before he continued, voice softening. "You have a talent for bridging art and community. I'd like your input on the creative strategy too, if you're up for it." A flicker of surprise crossed her face. "I'd like that, thank you." In that moment, past conflict seemed to recede. The mutual respect felt fragile but real. Jonathan gathered his courage, stepping closer. "Charlotte, about the past." Her shoulders tensed. "Jonathan, I don't want to relive." "Just hear me out," he interrupted gently. "I can't change what happened, but if we're going to work together, I want to make sure that my regrets don't keep weighing you down. You deserved better from me. I belittled your passion and shut you out. I'm sorry." Her lips parted as she weighed his words. Softly she replied, "I appreciate that. It took me years to rebuild my confidence after we separated. But I also recognize my own failings. I never confronted you properly, never fought for my dreams until it was too late. We both had our roles in the downfall." He swallowed the lump in his throat. "I'd like to move forward as professionals, maybe even friends, if that's possible." She studied him for a long moment, reading sincerity in his eyes. A swirl of emotion flickered across her face. Relief, apprehension, acceptance. "Let's see how this project goes and take it from there." Her voice was gentle. "I don't hate you, Jonathan. I've just learned how to live without you." The words stung, but not in a harsh way. They felt real, a reminder that she had survived and found new life. He nodded, releasing a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Thank you," he whispered, a tight smile on his lips. Moments later, Marcus reappeared. A quick glance told him this was a serious conversation. He joined them, glancing from one to the other. Everything all right? Charlotte answered first. Yes, Jonathan and I were just discussing creative synergy for the campaign. Marcus's gaze lingered on Jonathan's face, searching for deeper meaning. Satisfied with the calm atmosphere, he nodded. Excellent. Then, pivoting to Jonathan, we have a small reception tonight for potential investors. If you're free, we'd love for you to come. Give them a glimpse of the marketing angle from your perspective. Though unexpected, Jonathan recognized it was a golden opportunity to cement his role. I'd be honored, he said. Thus, a few hours later, Jonathan found himself at a private lounge on the top floor of the Laurent Tech building. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Avalon Heights, a glowing tapestry of city lights. The lounge had dimmed lighting, plush couches, and an open bar. Investors, philanthropic enthusiasts, and a few media reps mingled in clusters. Charlotte meandered through the crowd, greeting guests while Marcus engaged in deep conversations about capital expansions. Jonathan breathed in the scent of cedar from the polished wood. He made small talk with potential sponsors, discussing the synergy between tech innovation and community outreach. Slowly he realized just how well he fit into this environment. He enjoyed weaving narratives that rallied people behind a cause, not just pushing corporate branding. He felt purposeful in a way he seldom had when focusing on profit-driven campaigns. Before long, Charlotte arrived at his side, gesturing to a circle of guests. Jonathan, these are two philanthropic donors who've funded youth programs in the city. Could you share how your campaign approach will benefit them? He launched into an impassioned explanation of the marketing strategy, highlighting tangible outcomes for at-risk communities. One of the donors, an older woman with silver hair, gave him a glowing endorsement, praising his clarity and sincerity. Charlotte listened, an appreciative smile gracing her lips. As the evening progressed, Jonathan found it surprisingly easy to collaborate with Charlotte. They complemented each other, interweaving artistic vision with marketing fundamentals. Observing them from across the room, Marcus sipped a glass of scotch, a hint of curiosity and satisfaction coexisting on his face. The synergy was exactly what he'd hoped for in bridging his philanthropic goals with effective communication strategies. Yet amid the professional triumph, an undercurrent of tension swirled. Charlotte was clearly committed to Marcus, her affectionate glances, the little touches on his arm. Jonathan accepted that. But old, unresolved affections stirred within him like a half-forgotten tune. He had to remind himself that closure didn't mean reclaiming the past, and redemption wouldn't come from tearing apart what Charlotte had built. Toward the end of the reception, Jonathan stepped onto a small balcony for air. Below, the city glowed in neon brilliance. A wave of gratitude washed over him for this opportunity, for a chance to prove he wasn't the same self-centered man. He heard footsteps, light and familiar. Charlotte joined him, leaning on the railing. "It's quite a view," he nodded. "It is, and tonight felt fulfilling." She smiled softly. "I'm glad. You were always good with people, but now it seems genuine, not just performance." He didn't deny it. Instead, he stared at the horizon, searching for the right words. "Charlotte, I'm happy you found your way, that you have Marcus, your art, your independence. I just wanted you to know that." Her response was tender. "Thank you." A moment of silence passed, and in that stillness, for the first time in 5 years, they seemed at peace with each other's existence. Weeks flowed into a rhythm of productive collaboration. Jonathan's team worked closely with LawTech Cares, developing an immersive online presence for the educational software campaign. Filming commenced in local schools, capturing heartfelt stories of children who embraced technology to enhance creativity. Charlotte orchestrated the visual aesthetic, mapping how each student's artwork could be showcased both physically and digitally. Their synergy sparked excitement in the philanthropic world. Media outlets began covering the Laurent initiative, praising the authentic marketing approach. Jonathan attended multiple film shoots, often accompanied by Charlotte, whose empathetic guidance helped kids feel comfortable on camera. The lines between exes and colleagues blurred into a shared purpose. Yet not all was smooth. Behind the scenes, some of Jonathan's staff whispered about his personal ties with Charlotte, wondering if the project might be overshadowed by old drama. A few corners of the internet speculated, is the ex-husband clinging to the billionaire's success? Tensions rose when an influential business columnist wrote an op-ed questioning Jonathan's motive in taking the collaboration. Gavin privately warned Jonathan to keep a tight rein on the narrative. The culminating event was a grand showcase, a gala reminiscent of the first but with a twist. It focused entirely on the children's achievements. Hosted at Marcus's newly renovated tower, the top floor was transformed into an interactive art gallery. Giant monitors displayed short videos highlighting student success stories, while actual paintings and sculptures by the children adorned the space. Charlotte directed the setup meticulously, ensuring every piece was spotlighted with dignity. Jonathan fine-tuned the presentation, guaranteeing that each exhibit told a coherent story of hope and innovation. On the night of the showcase, high-profile donors, educators, and media arrived in droves. Cameras flashed, capturing the synergy between art and technology. At the entrance, a large banner read, "Laurent Initiative, Empowering Tomorrow Through Innovation and Art." Marcus stood beside Charlotte, elegantly dressed in a slate-grey suit, his arm lightly around her waist. Jonathan, wearing a tailored charcoal suit, greeted sponsors and pointed them toward the exhibit stations. A hush of anticipation fell when the MC announced the official opening of the event. Quietly, Charlotte took the stage first. She held a microphone, her expression glowing with a mix of excitement and nerves. "Welcome, everyone. Tonight is about celebrating the future, about the children who've poured their imagination into every canvas and coded line. I'm honored to present their work, and I thank our donors for making this possible." The audience applauded warmly. Then Marcus joined her, explaining how technology could be harnessed to amplify creativity and opportunity for the most vulnerable students. "This is only the beginning," he proclaimed, his voice resonant. Finally, the MC signaled Jonathan's turn. He stepped up, scanning the crowd. His eyes caught Charlotte's encouraging nod, buttressing his confidence. "We've documented stories from remarkable kids. Stories of transformation, resilience, and dreams realized. We, as marketers or tech innovators, only provide a platform. The true magic comes from them." He gestured toward a corner where a group of the spotlighted students stood, beaming with pride. Cameras flashed, applause thundered. After the speeches, the crowd dispersed to explore the galleries, sample hors d'oeuvres, and mingle. Jonathan wandered along the exhibits, occasionally stopped by well-wishers offering compliments about the marketing's authenticity. He felt something deeper than professional pride. It was a sense of personal redemption. He approached one exhibit featuring a series of vibrant paintings from a teenage girl named Anissa who overcame economic hardships. She had used the educational software to learn design techniques that blended seamlessly with her traditional painting skills. Admirers gathered around, marveling at her raw talent. Standing beside his ex-wife in front of this exhibit, Jonathan whispered, "This is exactly what we wanted, to give a young artist a platform to shine." Charlotte nodded, her gaze lingering on the bold colors. "Yes, it's rewarding, isn't it?" She caught his eye. "Seeing that we can do something good, together." Her soft admission carried more weight than she realized. For a moment, they shared a look that bridged past regrets to the present achievements. Something gentle settled between them, understanding or acceptance. Then came the moment that solidified the entire collaboration. A hush swept the room again as the young artists stepped forward to share brief remarks. Anissa, shy yet determined, took the microphone. She expressed how the software opened her mind to new possibilities. She thanked the donors, the mentors, and singled out Charlotte for championing artistic expression. Then, in a move that felt orchestrated by fate. She also acknowledged Jonathan for telling her story in a way that respected her identity. Jonathan stood, heart swelling at the authenticity of her gratitude. He glanced at Charlotte, whose eyes sparkled with tears. In that raw second, he felt something shift. The crowd cheered Anissa, cameras flashing to capture every moment. It was the kind of redemption arc that rarely happened in real life, and yet here it was, tangible, unassailable. As the evening wound down, guests milled about in cheerful conversation. Jonathan retreated to a quieter balcony, the same vantage as the previous cocktail reception, this time filled with triumphant energy rather than pure anxiety. He gazed out at the city, the night sky glistening with promise. Footsteps approached. He turned to see Charlotte once again. She joined him at the railing, the ambient city lights reflecting in her eyes. For a moment, neither spoke, just absorbing the successful event that had changed their dynamic forever. Finally, she broke the silence. "Jonathan, I'm truly proud of what we accomplished here, and I see now that you've grown. Part of me never expected to see this side of you." His voice was laced with gratitude. "I owe a lot of that growth to reflection on how I treated you, how I took things for granted. I can't say I don't still have regrets, but at least I'm trying to do something positive now." Her gaze was gentle. "I appreciate hearing that. And it's important that you acknowledge it for yourself too. You can't live trapped in self-blame forever." He nodded. A beat passed. Then he ventured softly. "Have you thought about marriage with Marcus?" A mild flush colored her cheeks, surprise evident. "We've discussed it. No official announcement yet, though. Marcus has asked. I just haven't given a final answer. I needed to be sure about my feelings and my future." Jonathan swallowed his emotions. "He's a good man, and you deserve the best." She studied him, catching the sincerity in his voice. "Thank you. That means a lot." Marcus appeared in the doorway, seeming to sense he was entering a personal moment. He stayed a slight distance away, but made eye contact. Charlotte glanced over her shoulder and offered him a reassuring smile, silently pledging that everything was fine. Jonathan stepped back, giving her space. "Enjoy the rest of your evening," he said gently. "And thanks for letting me be part of this." Before she could respond, he made his way inside, leaving her by the balcony. Observing Marcus approach her with concern and affection, Jonathan felt a pang in his heart, tinged with sorrow, but also acceptance. He recognized what it meant to let go, to accept that his path forward might not include Charlotte as a romantic partner, but as an ally in doing good. 1 week later, a press release announced that Anissa and several other youths had been offered scholarships by the Laurent Initiative to continue their education in art and technology. The campaign's success soared, and Bravo Marketing's name was lauded for its empathetic marketing ethos. Jonathan's redemption was sealed publicly, though personally he still had to navigate winding emotional roads. He threw himself into philanthropic work, forging new partnerships beyond the Laurent Initiative. Unexpectedly, invitations poured in from non-profits impressed by his shift in approach. He discovered a renewed sense of purpose, forging a legacy that transcended bottom lines. Each step was a testament to the lesson he learned too late with Charlotte, but not too late for everyone else he could still help. Time can rob us of things we once treasured, yet it also opens doors to new possibilities. Jonathan learned the hardest lessons in the most public way, witnessing his ex-wife stand alongside a billionaire, glowing in her creative success, made him confront his own mistakes. But through vulnerability, perseverance, and the willingness to lift others, he found a path to redemption. Their story shows that even when relationships break and scars remain, it's never too late for growth and understanding. If this tale resonated with you, if you believe in second chances and the courage to rewrite one's destiny, please give this video a like, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Thank you for watching.